Welcome everyone to Greatness Glory podcast. We're going to have an interesting and different podcast today where I'm going to talk about 10 different spiritual gurus that I learned from, and to some of them I greatly owe and respect, and that includes even the ones that I didn't end up staying with them because I found, they were not aligned with the truth. You can say they were fakes or delusional. And even to those, I'm grateful because I learned many things from them. So I will tell you about my different experiences with these gurus and what I learned from them. And it's the sacred occasion of Guru Purnima soon, in a couple of days, where in the Indian tradition, the greatness of Guru or spiritual teacher, which is not really that the right translation for Guru, is celebrated. And it's funny that this all came to me without any plans or without me thinking about this anniversary. So it's a good time to share and express my gratitude to all of these masters. Before I start, I want to start this podcast with an Sanskrit invocation that also includes paying respect to all gurus. So you might want to close your eyes for 30 seconds and listen, whatever you prefer. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Avamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmana Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannuti Saranam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Shri Gurupyo Namaha Hari Om. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Deva Maheshwara Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, just to start and give you a short introduction to what comes next, I had a couple of episodes where we talked about Guru, the meaning of Guru, and I wrote a whole series, The Rose Garden of the Secret, which here and there talks about the spiritual principles, including Guru. And, people often wonder, what is my, credibility for talking about those things? So over past 25 years or so, I learned from so many gurus, and that learning from good ones and bad ones, the higher quality, the best ones and the lower quality ones, gave me a lot of understanding to talk about it. And I will talk a lot about the things that I learned from. And if you listen and digest some of this, it can accelerate your own spiritual journey of self-realization and prevent you from making mistakes. And, I don't encourage people to have multiple gurus, even though in certain traditions that's normal. But the truth is that the spirituality is about seeing one, becoming one, following one, and concentrating all of your attention into one. Even Jesus said you cannot have two masters because you will like one more and dislike the other one or something like that. And this is just the human psychology. So even though I did this, I'm not encouraging it. When I started around 14 years old, I was naive and maybe I was impatient and I was trying to find my way. And for some reason, I had to go through multiple false lights and, fake gurus and charlatans and things like that, because somehow I needed that experience to grow and learn. And maybe it was a part of my journey to talk about it and teach others as well. So even from the bad gurus, we can say I learned so much. And here's the thing, even though it might sound stupid to some people, even the ones that I ended up not agreeing with them or not receiving anything from them anymore, I learned a lot and I respect them. And this podcast is also a way for me to express my gratitude, because that's my nature. I want to express my gratefulness, even though I'll be honest with one or two of the people that I will mention here, and some of them you won't hear a name about them. I'm just going to say something like Guru number 5. Even though I felt hurt for a while, I still respect them and I'm grateful because they taught me a lot. You know, if you're ready, anything in the universe can be your guru and teacher. The real guru is inside. And there is a Chinese proverb, I believe, that says a wise man learns more from a stupid question than an unwise man learns from a wise answer. It's all about us. But the truth is that those seekers, students that are like that can even learn from anything, are very, very rare, really less than 1%. And lastly, even though I put these 10 gurus in an order, some of them are not exactly in order that I learned from, but I changed the order so it makes sense more to you. So the Guru 1, I'm going to start to talk about the gurus now. I'll just call him Guru 1. I met him when I was around 14 or 15 years old because I got interested in martial arts and he was a martial arts teacher. And I got into martial arts for wrong reasons, but martial arts made me right in so many ways because I was always open to learn the better way and a higher way of thinking and seeing things and learning better. So the Guru 1 taught me a lot about the fact that body is capable of way more than we can imagine, both physically and energetically, and that being physically fit increases your self-confidence. And this self-confidence might not be the right word, but the sense of being stable within yourself, maybe it's the right word. And even it helps you to control your mind because the body and mind are very related. That's why in yoga, the yoga asanas exist. And some people only practice the yoga asanas if they do it in the right way. It gives you a lot of control over your mind and emotions as well. So martial arts does that as well. Another thing that he taught me and martial arts taught me was discipline and, more importantly, willpower to be able to take pain, to be able to fight against your limitations and become stronger internally in your mind and in your willpower, and externally with your body. Now, this Guru one, he wasn't really a spiritual person, but I'm including all of them to share with you so you can learn what happened. He was a lot into, I can say, occult and metaphysics, but he wasn't a spiritual person. He taught me certain things about energy control and increasing the power of concentration, which really changed me forever in good ways. But even though it was helpful, there was nothing about the self realization and freedom and spirituality really in it. And now I want to talk about what was wrong with this teacher. He was full of himself a lot, and he would hallucinate a lot and thinking that he teaches the best thing, and even lies to impress other people about physical and metaphysical powers and things like that, and ignorantly teaching people some occult things that really needs to be only teach to qualified people. And these things are dangerous, and barely anybody wants to accept that. People think occult things and magic and whatever, it's a game, but it's not. You really shouldn't get into those things unless you want to ruin your life. So let's switch to Guru 2. So Guru 2, he was way more spiritual. He was very transformative for me. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot of things about studying different systems and traditions and techniques, and that opened my mind to see the mechanism behind so many things, how they work, why they work. That's why I talk a lot about many spiritual traditions, because with this guru and many other studies that I had, it created a higher level of realization within me to understand the unity of all of them, and the the core that is the same within all of them. Only the language and their methods are different. But I also learned that the way that he was, that you can be trapped in your own knowledge and think that intellectually you can find all the answers and become proud of your knowledge, try to prove to others that they're wrong, and worse than that, missing touch with your intuitive power, because not everything has to make sense intellectually. Sometimes things have to be felt within your heart and within your intuition, like an energy, like a feeling that tells you, go to this direction, this is the path for you. And that was his limitation, because this guy was more like, if I learn more and more, I get closer to enlightenment. And that's not the truth. Most of the time, studying too much without realizing the truth behind them and without a stable practice, it actually creates more disharmony and conflict within you. And the Guru tree, Sri Narayan Kaka, I can say in so many ways, he is my first guru, which I highly respect and love. And he's no longer in physical body anymore. And he is a Siddha yoga guru. And in short, Siddha yoga is a path that it doesn't have any technique. There's nothing. The only technique that exists, we can say, is just sitting and surrendering to the divine energy within you, And that becomes only possible when you receive an initiation that in a way awakens your inner energy, Kundalini, which I have other episodes about them. You can go and watch. And that inner energy within you, the divine energy within you, guides you. So even though in some of these traditions they might give you a mantra or something, in my tradition that I got initiated to, there's nothing. Everything that you need, a meditative state, chanting a mantra, a physical position, a hand position, a mudra, or breathing, it happens to you when you completely surrender. And if you're new to these things, you might have a hard time believing in that. But I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm just sharing my own experience. So what I learned, and I'm still learning, is that in all spiritual traditions, surrender, which most people misunderstand its meaning, is the highest stage. If you really surrender, everything happens very fast for your best. And when I first received the initiation, I told him that I didn't really experience or feel anything. And he told me initiation is not an experience. And spiritual progress is not about having experiences or seeing lights or something, strange happening to you. And he told me to keep practicing. And even though my mind was very doubtful, I kept practicing even on and off. And after some time, I got the result and things happened to me, which I can't really explain. But that taught me that this path actually needs a very good amount of surrender, and it's not for everyone, especially for people who are, we can say control freaks, and they want to control everything and they cannot relax and surrender, and they're too much intellectual, and if something doesn't make sense to them, they can't accept it and allow it. So it's not for everyone, but that was a turning point and an energetic change, I can say, in my life. But I didn't stay and purely practicing that path for various personal reasons, which I'm not going to get into it, but it is still with me in so many ways, and I still experience it. And it is integrated with who I am and what I do and my other spiritual practices. Now we're going to get into the Guru 4, which I'm not going to name. And I studied under him for a few years. Here's a very interesting story. I was very interested in him and his teachings and respected him a lot. But then I had some doubts about certain things that he would teach. But towards the end, I really decided this is not my path. And I'm going to talk about the details of what happened, because he taught me a lot about shamanism, working with plants, the sacred tobacco, which is used in shamanism, rituals, and so many things. And I have another podcast with Mero Artsy, who is a shaman, who talked extensively about tobacco, which you can go and watch. It's a very interesting episode. So he taught me about connecting with forces of nature, the occult sciences, different type of magic, different styles of shamanism, and a lot of things, honestly, a lot of things, so many things. That's why I'm grateful to that possibility of learning so much. But here's the thing, and that's why I stopped following him. You can hallucinate if you are not fully aware, and this happens to the best of spiritual practitioners and teachers, and think that something is correct just because your beliefs say it is correct. In my own spirituality, I never accepted that doing harmful things with any justification is the right thing. But since he was into occult, he believed that if you do things to people for various reasons, if they hurt you, or let's say if they owe you money and not giving it, and you use some powers to do things, it is justified. And that never resonated with me. But I always gave the things that I studied a lot of time, and I dived very deeply into them to understand them. That's why I always say, if you're choosing a guru or a guru chooses you and you're studying under him, or even anything else in life, go all the way into it. Because I see a lot of people go to this certain, famous guru and that guru, and then they learn something and they become very confident, and still they have not studied all of his teachings, his books, they have not taken all of his courses, and they have this illusion that they know. But at least if you really dedicate 100% of yourself to study a tradition for a few years, not that it is your number 6 priority in life, in a way that is really a high priority in your life, and then you decide, that makes sense if your decision is to stay or leave or change your path. But you really have to give yourself all the way. And I always say, if you're in love with someone, like a partner, this relationship, this romance cannot exist unless you trust each other. Without trust, love cannot exist. If you think it can exist, that's not love. That's a different form of love. Maybe that's a conditional love. But a high quality love without fully trusting someone cannot exist. So the same way with a teacher, even though I'm not saying if a teacher or a guru says something which is obviously wrong, you should accept. I'm saying you have to give yourself all the way to it before you can judge it. So what went wrong? So he was saying a lot of these things about you can do this thing and harm people if they deserve it and things like that, and I didn't like it. And it was also a lot into this dark side of, I can say, occult, and maybe we can call it black magic. And he would hallucinate. Again, hallucination happens to many gurus and spiritual seekers and teachers. This is something to watch for. And obviously, if you're not yourself very perceptive, you cannot judge someone else with that. But this is a big issue in many spiritual seekers and teachers. People just become delusional. They think that they have certain accomplishment, or they're enlightened, or they're God or something. But a lot of time it's just illusion. It's a hallucination. And so he had also those hallucinations. And it's interesting. For many years, I kept thinking these people, some of them that do these things are charlatans, or doing it intentionally. But then I realized, actually, no, they don't even really know that they're doing that. Yeah, there are some fake gurus and charlatans, obviously, but a lot of them actually, they're delusional. But again, he was so misaligned that he would even threaten you and be, angry towards you, even like forcing you to do things. And that's not right in most cases, because spirituality is about freedom. No guru, no real guru would tell you that you have to follow me, or you have to stay here and do this practice and something like that, So after a few years, I departed my way from him. And I'll be honest with you, I was also hurt because I felt abused. And it took me a while to get over it. Not necessarily because his teaching was not aligned, but also because the way that he even treated me. So that was another not so good experience. But even though that happened, I'm grateful to a lot of things that he taught me. I think we need discernment in life and on a spiritual path to decide to always take the best out of everything, filter the bad and keep the good things. That's why I say with religion also, you don't necessarily have to change your religion, but use your common sense and study multiple religions. If you want to still follow your own religion, but you don't think some parts of it is aligned with truth, filter it out. And that's a discussion for another topic. And then we get to Guru 5, which over many years, over 10 years, simultaneously, I was also learning a lot from him. And I learned that there are many, many different ways of approaching the same reality spiritually. I learned a lot about the importance of receiving energetic support or those initiations on the path, which will kind of support you on the path. But again, I also learned that you can be ignorant and delusional and think that you're someone that you're really not. And that you can fool yourself, think you're a spiritual teacher, but for making more money, making things up, and allowing your greed for money to influence what you teach. That happens to most of the organizations that call themselves spiritual tradition or organization, unfortunately, and religious organizations. Because the moment that money is an important factor that becomes your priority, then you are not a spiritual teacher. Nothing is wrong with money. Nothing is wrong with charging money even for spiritual teachings. The thing that is wrong, and that is not even wrong maybe, but the thing that really messes it up is that when that becomes an important thing and it becomes your priority, then you're not teaching pure spirituality. You're just a business person. And that changes the quality and the energy and the vibe of what you teach, and it affects your intentions. So let's move on to Guru 6, which has been my guru, even though he's not in physical body for many years. And that is from the Nimatullahi Sufi order. So Guru 6 is Dr. Jawad Nurbakhsh. And he was a really accomplished Sufi guru. I loved him a lot. He was a very powerful person. And I'm not going to talk a lot about the details of it. And I never met him in person, actually. But I was initiated into that path by one of his students. What Sufism taught me, and I'm still learning, is that if you let go of your mind and fall in love, lose yourself in love with God, with the Guru, whatever you call, with Jesus, with a divine form, that takes you all the way towards the goal. And that a lot of other things in Sufism about elimination of sense of I, it's very serious, and Sufis take this very seriously. It's a sin. It's a, heresy, blasphemy, whatever you call it, to even think I am such a thing. I am good. I'm significant. I am big. That's why in the previous gurus, when I mentioned them, that was one of the biggest issues they had. And there are more to come. So I'm going to get into guru number 7. And I learned a lot from this guru. I learned so much about change of perception and going beyond the thinking mind, unity, not forming beliefs and conclusions because that blocks you from seeing the truth, not being limited by your beliefs, and understanding that spirituality is all an experience, and that with the yogic practices, you can change the way that you feel, and that's all that matters. Because once you change your baseline of your mood, the chemistry of your body, everything changes for you, because your whole life experience is within you. Everything that you think is the cause of your unhappiness is external. And I talked a lot about this. I talked about it in my book, Art of Balance, which you can go to greatnessglory.com and download the PDF, ebook, and audiobook for free if you're interested. So I learned so many things, and I deeply respect this teacher, but I also learned some other not so good things. Like, even if you are like a highly advanced guru, you might not necessarily be, all knowing, and you can make claims or talk about things that can mislead people or even, turn off some people. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but not to think because, for example, you have a status and maybe you're a little bit famous and known, that you should give opinions about everything. And I'm not saying even that's wrong. There are some of things that some gurus do, which is some sort of game, and I'm not going to get into it. But also, making yourself the object of worship in so many ways is wrong to me, because in all of these traditional teachings, even though it's true that certain really advanced spiritual beings and avatars and high beings, they told people that because they really became one with the God, with the universe. They were like one with him, with it, God, whatever you call it. And they can be a source for blessing. But if you keep telling people that I'll take care of everything, you just worship me and all those things, I just don't resonate with that. And that's all about the Guru 7. And now I'm going to move to Guru 8, which for a short time I followed and learned a bunch of different things from. And obviously, I'm not going to name him, but he was one of the very interesting cases of delusional gurus and fake ones. That's why I only followed him, and I can't even say follow, for a short time, and learned a few things from him. He was lost in his own powers, and he had some powers and energies and things like that. He could influence people, but again, providing false teachings and hallucinating, thinking that he is enlightened and he is in touch with God. And worse than that, again, monetizing everything, which unfortunately happens these days. Some famous guru, which is like super fake, I'm not going to name, says, oh, there is this course for opening your third eye. It's $20,000. Jesus Christ. And at the same time, there are other gurus that are teaching something that is way beyond opening your third eye, which barely anybody can understand the value of it, and they're offering it for almost free. So it's not about how much they charge. And Now I'm going to get into Guru number 9, which is my Gurudev Sadguru Shiva Premanandaji, who I deeply respect. And in last many years, I've been really blessed to learn from and receive. And I can say in so many ways, all of these gurus and experiences and studies happened so I can be here. I learned a lot of things from him. I feel like he has given me almost everything, and I feel complete in so many ways with him. A few things that I learned from him that I will shortly say in bullet points is that one thing that I learned again and again from him and even from previous gurus and teachings, that the guru's grace in the spiritual path, in yoga, in those traditions, is higher than any technique, higher than any mantra. Because so many people have this misunderstanding and they really believe it, that they think if they find the perfect technique, the perfect secret mantra, their problems will be fixed. And the other thing is to understand that on the spiritual path, especially in these yogic traditions, the Sufi traditions, the guru is everything, because he's the portal that makes everything possible. There are many people that have this illusion that they think, I don't need a guru. Why do I need a guru? And none of them will ever reach the final step of enlightenment. Maybe some of them make some advancements, maybe they experience some supernatural things or some advancement in their, mastery over their mind or body, but they will almost never reach enlightenment. That's why guru is so important. And we have very different types of gurus. Not all of them are at the same level. That's important to understand. Because in India, if you say guru, for so many people, it just means a spiritual teacher, like, like a pastor or someone. It's necessarily not always about like a perfect enlightened guru or something. I learned a lot about the science of mantras, and that the names of God, the divine forms, are extremely powerful. And I'm planning to do a podcast on mantras. But the name of God in Sanskrit, the mantra, just one simple sentence, when you receive it from a guru, has infinite potential to change everything for you. I'm saying everything, if you faithfully chant it and practice it. But it has to come from a living and authentic guru, so it can work powerfully. In the science of mantra yoga, they say that the name of God and God are not different. So whenever you're chanting the name of God, even when you say, for example, Allah or Yeshua, the Jesus, you are calling them from within. They are within you, and you're calling that energy from within. And if you do it with love and devotion regularly, a lot of things change for you. But again, the most powerful version of this happens when you receive this initiation into mantra from a guru. One more thing that I learned from my guru is that it's not enough to meditate and do yogic practices and breathing and mantras. You also have to constantly monitor yourself to see your limiting beliefs, to change your character, to put a conscious effort to change your life. It's not about just sitting for half an hour and 1 hour of meditation and think that you've done all you can. Every second of your life, you have to become more self-aware and see your own limitations that are creating your life problems. Next thing is that the same thing that I talked about in the beginning, that you should choose one guru one form, one divine form, one God, one mantra, and channelize all of your emotions and devotion and concentration into that one, and then only it will work. If you do 10 different techniques, none of them will work. There is a saying from Swami Satyananda Saraswati, which I deeply respect, that says if you make 50 1 feet holes, it's not gonna give you water. But if you dig 150-feet hole, you will not stay thirsty. It's about digging one hole deeper, not doing 10 different types of meditation. Another thing is the importance of honesty with yourself on the spiritual path, which again connects to what we discussed. So many of those not so high quality gurus, they were not honest with themselves and they were fooling themselves and others. If you don't examine yourself every second, every day to see if you're being honest with yourself and others, if you're on the right path, if you're really sticking to high values in your life, non-violence, honesty, compassion, forgiveness, and those things, then you lose your path easily. That's why in Sufism, for example, there's not a lot talk about doing various types of meditations and techniques like yoga. It's more about completely losing yourself in love and service. And that's another teaching that I also keep learning from Guruji here, that it's important to do service. Service is one important thing that helps us to detach from our ego and sense of I and defending ourselves and sticking to that self-interest. And even though there are many more things that Guruji teaches, just going to include one more thing here. One important thing that every day I am understanding and practicing more and more is that the inner world creates outside world. Your inner thoughts and emotions, they manifest everything external. And I keep talking about this, and it's very hard to understand. Even my own mind can't really understand it. But the way that you think and your beliefs and all those things, it attracts different things to you. So in so many ways, many teachings, many spiritual traditions say that everything that is in your life is a manifestation of your own thoughts. Nothing is happening to you without you attracting it one way or another. So lastly, I'm going to talk about Babaji, especially Haidakam Babaji, also known as Mahavatar Babaji, which Paramahansa Yogananda talked about. And his photo is behind me. And he is not a guru, and he is at the same time the guru of all gurus. And I'm intending to create another episode to talk more about him. And I'm doing certain works actually to promote some of his teachings. One of them is creating a library of the books that are written about him. He's very different than any normal guru that you can consider. And I never met him in person. He left his last body at 1984. But he has influenced and directed my life in so many ways. And unfortunately, there are so many fake gurus, unfortunately, that's sad for me, that they claim that they are in connection with Babaji and millions of people are fooled and following them. And you can actually consider that a red flag whenever somebody talks about Babaji and I'm in connection with Babaji or Babaji taught something to me. That's just a smart trick to make people become more interested, because Paramahansa Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi talked about Babaji for like 2 to 4 pages totally. And then so many things came out of that. So many people hallucinated. So many people think they are in touch with Babaji. And Babaji is a living presence, just like Jesus Christ. And he can be experienced if you're open, if you have devotion. And not all of them are fake, but there are many of them are fake. So Babaji is not the guru number 10. He is in a totally different categories. Even when you read about Babaji in so many different books, you see there were so many great gurus that had many, many followers and were considered to be highly spiritual or saints or enlightened. And when they would see Babaji, they would fall at his feet. That says a lot about his status. So he is considered a divine incarnation, an avatar of Lord Shiva, which in Hindu cosmology theology is the same concept for the omnipotent, omnipresent God, which obviously this teaching is not for everyone. I'm just sharing my own experience. In the same way that so many people consider Jesus as a divine incarnation, so many people consider him as just like a normal prophet, some as a guru, some as a charlatan. So I'm not going to get into that now. And so, as I said, he doesn't come really number 10. He's been in my life so many ways and guiding me. And if I were really better, it's all my shortcoming. I could have received everything from him. That's why he taught some of the most important things to people of this age, which deeply touched me also. One of them is that when you have divine faith, when you have devotion, really deep connection, deep romantic connection to a divine form, an avatar, like Babaji or Jesus or Krishna, everything is possible. The same thing might not necessarily be possible with any normal guru, but there have been many documented cases of people who were very different than most of us. They were really devotional people, surrendering to the will of the guru, simple-minded people with pure heart. And they have achieved the highest spiritual levels without even studying one spiritual book or learning any technique, just because of their devotion. And you see, if you really studied Christianity, for example, you see that's what's unique about Christ between all of the Abrahamic religions teachings, because that's the only place where the teaching says that if you only have faith, if you love, if you see Christ in everyone, if you serve people, basically, if you really have deep faith, your sins will be forgiven. You will be exalted. You will be healed and all those things. And even today, Jesus is available and heals people. And it is known, and even Yogananda said that Jesus and Babaji and so many other great masters, they're working day and night together for the upliftment of humanity. And we are living in a very special times right now. That's why Babaji came to talk about it and warn people that if we do not stop being selfish, again, prioritizing money over everything, harming others, harming Mother Nature, a lot of casualties will happen, because there is a whole science which cannot be put in 1 million books even, of the cycle of Earth and energetic shifts in the Indian sciences that you can go and learn from. The 4 cycles of universe. And we are in a special transition time right now. And my Guruji, Shiva Pramanandaji, that I talked about previously, talks about this, and he's also deeply connected to the Babaji. And Babaji talked about this a lot. He came to warn people that there is a great revolution coming. Mahakranti, he called it. And this great revolution, it changes everything. People who live by egoistic tendencies, they will be removed because earth is purging. So he taught, and this is the things that I learned, that the three highest principles of spirituality are this: you don't need 613 commandments of the Jewish tradition, for example, or all the detailed sharia and things like that to become spiritual. You only need these three things. He called them satya, saralata, and primam. It means truth, simplicity, and love. And these are the three highest principles that especially we need in this age. Truth means, again, honesty with yourself and honesty with others. Simplicity means simplifying the way that you think and you act and the way that you're running your life. Otherwise, you'll be always stressed and your mind never stops. It's always worrying about your next bill. In order for you to fulfill your desire to live in a better place or ride a better car, you cannot sleep at night because you have so much debt and all those things. And love, obviously, is explained in all the spiritual traditions and religion. They said God is love. When you're in love, you're becoming one with God, with your higher self. And God is not somewhere external sitting in the clouds. God is within yourself. It's in your breath. It's in your blood. It's in your soul. It's in your awareness. It's in your thoughts. He also taught that the highest yoga, highest spiritual practice is to do your work without attachment to the results as an offering to God. This is called karma yoga. It's a very famous form of yoga in the Hindu traditions, where you stop doing things for personal interest and you make everything as offering to God. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the supreme personality of God, he says to Arjuna, his disciple, he says that offer everything to me, even your pain and suffering, good and bad, your anger, your loss, your limitations, your frustration, and then soon you will come to me. So that is a science of psychology in so many ways. When you channelize all of your emotions towards one symbol, one archetype, one God, you become harmonious. You learn to control your thoughts and emotions. And the last thing that I want to talk about, teachings of Babaji, he taught everyone to chant God's name. Specifically, he talked about the famous Shiva mantra, which I will put on the screen for you to see, which basically means I surrender to God. I surrender to the higher will, the higher power. And he said that this mantra is millions of times stronger than atomic bombs. And if you want to get into the details of this mantra, and you don't have to, that's all the way that my mind works, we can talk about it for 1,000 hours about everything that's behind the power of this mantra. If you chant this mantra with dedication, starting from 5 minutes a day and increasing your way up to whatever you can, 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, as a form of a spiritual practice and meditation, it has the power to give you everything spiritually and physically, and change your mind and change the way that you feel and change your circumstances and purify your karma and remove the negativity and everything. It has an infinite power. This mantra has been praised in thousands of scriptures and teachings over the last, God knows how many years, 5, 10,000 years of so many of these spiritual traditions of India. And if you don't relate to these teachings, you can also choose to chant the name of God in your own tradition, whether it's Allah or Yahuwah or whatever it is. So he also said that people have become very lazy and we need to be very active. And this being active not only improves your health, something I talked about in Art of Balance, also it's again that karma yoga, that you need to have courage also, he said, to pass through water and fire, to not give up, to not only purify yourself and reduce your ego and connect to divinity, but also share it with others and share this message. It's a good time for me to also talk about this project that I'm working on. It's called Babaji Library. You can find it at babajilibrary.com. It's still in progress. I just started working on it, and I am putting all of the not copyrighted content and books about Babaji in one place as an offering to him and as a joy for sharing his message, which you can study later if you want. So this was my experience and my journey with 10 different gurus. And even though I had more teachers and gurus, a lot of them, maybe over 25 or 30, but they were not really my spiritual gurus or someone who I followed for, let's say, more than a year or something like that. Because I've been through all of these experiences, and for some reason, universe is funny, put me in touch with all of these not so good and honest gurus, some of them, and still I respect them because they still taught me. That's why I talk a lot about this also whenever it comes to spirituality, because as you know by now, I am not Tony Robbins style teacher. I teach holistic personal development, because this is not only a spirituality, what I teach at Greatness Glory, and it's not only personal development in that sense. It's both. It's about the physical, mental, emotional well-being, external relationship, communications, and controlling your mind and making your mind peaceful and achieving your higher perception in life, self-realization, connecting to the God, the consciousness within you, or whatever you call it. And I'm glad that I was able to do this podcast in this sacred occasion of Guru Purnima. My prostration, love, and gratitude to all of the gurus and teachers who provide the spiritual teachings for humanity, to Babaji, and to all of the other gurus who have blessed me and blessed all the humanity. Thank you for watching.